Welcome to the official YouTube channel for the Colin Cowherd podcast. Go on, hit the subscribe button. There you go, right down there. If you want to be among the first to hear my weekly takes, NFL, college football, more, right there. You know, I was bouncing around. I wanted to ask you a Niners question because you're so tied into them. You used to live there and did radio in the Bay Area. That, I was thinking about Brandon Aiyuk, and I like Brandon Aiyuk a lot. I think he's a top 5-6 receiver talent in the league. But it's really interesting because I always say this: a lot of what you make in life, how valuable. Forget your talent and productivity. How valuable you are to a company. That's your leverage. You can be talented. Companies. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And Fox at some point made a decision. And so talent alone is not getting you paid. It's your value. There's a lot of great tight ends who have never made great money. There's a lot of great running backs. Saquon Barkley is a stud, and there's not a huge market for that. But if I look at the Niners, here's my knock on Brandon Aiyuk. The most important person with the Niners is the brain of Kyle Shanahan, then the legs of Christian McCaffrey, the pass rush of Bosa, I would say the versatility of Debo, and then the protection of Trent Williams. I also think Kittle is a culture setter, his physical style of play. So I'm at like 6 people, and they drafted 2 receivers. I don't think, and Purdy's not a big deep ball thrower, nor do really good teams allow a lot of deep balls.
They're just not throwing go routes like most teams.
Yeah. How valuable is he?
I think they're in a tough spot. Let's use this example. Let's say you're Kyle Shanahan, and someone wrote an article that at the volume, John Middlekauff is making more money than Shannon Sharpe. You might have a problem on your hands, right? Shannon might be on the horn with you and Logan. Well, Trent Williams makes $20 million a year. He is widely considered one of the most talented left tackles in the history of the sport, and he's dominating right now.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey got a raise, but it was $20 million. Fred Warner doesn't make anywhere close to $20 million. Brandon Aiyuk's a really good player. He's scheduled to make almost $15 million. But they're offering him 25, 26. He's like, no, I'm 31. Well, you make 31 in that locker room. What, you're double the value of Fred Warner? If you're Trent Williams, like, we're all human beings. Like, I understand the market. I play left tackle, and this guy's making $9 million more than me. You got potential problems. I think it's a tough spot. Obviously, in a perfect world, I think what you would do now with the emergence of Christian McCaffrey last year and a half, you would just get rid of Debo. But contracts have already been signed. So you're kind of stuck right now.
Yeah.
And his value on the open market, given that he's so Kyle Shanahan dependent. Brandon Aiyuk's a really good player. Yeah. He's a winning player. I would struggle given the way they play, given the way they're built. They also have some big picture question marks. We just saw Trevor Lawrence. He got $200 million guaranteed. Brock Purdy has been objectively better. And I know Doug. I talked to him at the Combine. Doug loved Trevor, so Doug was pushing that. Kyle likes Purdy more than Doug likes Trevor Lawrence, and Doug likes Trevor Lawrence a lot. Kyle's in love with Brock Purdy here. So that number is going to be huge. Trent Williams you're going to have to figure out this left tackle thing. They do not come cheap, whether you trade for a guy, whether you mortgage a lot in the draft. I think they're just in a weird spot right now. They have a lot of really good players under contract making a lot of money. And then they got this situation. A couple years ago, he was in the doghouse. And he's proven he's a winning player. But the way they play, he's never catching 95 balls. You get
never.
You get paid for production. There's a reason, guys, whether you're a winning player or a losing player, you score 30 points in the NBA, you're getting a max contract, right? St. Brown is catching 120 balls a year. Like, give me my $80 million. I mean, it's part of the deal.
Yeah.
So he catches 75. Now, he has a lot of yards, and he's a really, really good player. Is he ever a top 7 wide receiver in the NFL? So, because they pay premiums for Trent Williams, best left tackle, Fred Warner, best linebacker, Kittle, second or first tight end, McCaffrey, best running back. So it's like they are comfortable doing that. Debo, they were in a tough spot, and I think they kind of got pushed against the wall. He had just carried them with Jimmy Garoppolo being terrible to the NFC Championship.
Yeah. And I do think his versality is
100%. But then 6 months later, they got to trade for Christian McCaffrey if they would have known McCaffrey was coming, they probably just would have unloaded him that offseason, but it hadn't happened yet. I don't know. I could see a scenario where they play this out, which they're not going to want to do because the drama that comes with that. I could definitely see a trade, and I could definitely just see, because sometimes a coach just get it done. Let's over quote unquote pay. But then you have to worry about the locker room dynamics. And I think the 49ers, one thing they've really had, and Kyle does a great job of this, he's been around his whole life with his dad. It's a lot like New England. Everyone's pretty tight. Everyone's rowing in the same way. They don't do a lot of BS. And when it comes, it just doesn't, they get rid of it fast. So this is a weird spot because he's now vlogging his off season. Kyle Shanahan might be young, but he's an old soul. He's not really into all that crap. And it's probably a headache to him right now.
Yeah, I think so too. The, it's funny about, I got into this conversation about quarterbacks that the last 12 years, only 2 quarterbacks have won Super Bowls. Stars, Peyton, Brady, Mahomes, or guys who are talented but yet to be paid. Russell Wilson and Flacco were on the last year of their first year contract. And then the Wentz, Nick Foles team, where those guys weren't making any money. So essentially, like that's it. You Tua, Dak, good quarterbacks, big money, no chance. And so I looked at all the teams. I came up with 12 quarterbacks who were either I considered like throw the ball elite fashion, and it was Stafford and Mahomes and Allen. I put Aaron Rodgers on there. I put Lamar Jackson because I think he's elite, and Joe Burrow. Those are the 6. So they're in the Super Bowl bubble. And then there were 6 other guys who I consider really, really talented and inexpensive, all under $20 million a cap hit. Herbert, I think it was Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy. I'm missing somebody else, but it was that
Goff
group
in there.
That's interesting. So Goff was the one quarterback on the one team I didn't. He is not great, and he's too damn expensive. So over the last 12 years, there are no Jared Goffs. There are no A-, B+ quarterbacks, and with no history. I mean, Peyton Manning was older in Denver, but his brain was functioning. It's Peyton Manning. He could still play. There are no Goff winners. And it was interesting because I came away and I said, I actually like this bubble. It was, Ravens, Bengals. It was all the teams we like. Texans, I think we both agree, and Packers are young, but you wouldn't be shocked if they end up at a conference championship. And Detroit was my takeaway. And I also love Dan Campbell's ability to build a culture. I don't know if you get him in a game with a Shanahan or an Andy Reid if I feel so great about highly emotional Dan Campbell. So here's a franchise I love, a quarterback. I've been higher on Goff, you and I have, I think, than almost anybody in the media. Love their roster. It's a younger version of the Niners. But there are no examples of Jared Goff winning a Super Bowl, that kind of pay and quarterback. And, would it shock you if I said in 5 years they didn't win a Super Bowl?
Well, they're the Lions. But I do think they have a unique window because of the trade they made with Stafford and how well they drafted. Their team, roster-wise, feels more like a Ravens, right? They went toe-to-toe with the Niners, and they didn't have to lose any of those guys to sign this contract. Now, when the bill comes due and his number starts hitting whatever on a yearly basis, 20% of the cap, it's a little different. But right now, on a man-to-man basis, I would say they easily have a top 5 roster. Because the other thing they have, I was talking to our guy Jeff Schwartz, who Oregon Duck. He's like, do you realize that Penei Sewell is like 23, 24 years old? The players, their young talent, that Jahmyr Gibbs, the wide receiver, meets running back. Like he's a Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. We saw Laporta, Amon St. Brown. They do have a question mark at defensive back. If you have question marks at defensive back in 2024, it can be a problem. But they did add in the draft. They added Carlton Davis from Tampa Bay. So if they're just solid, the other thing, Colin, is a lot of times when you're a team that sucks and then a couple years later has success, people steal your coaches. For whatever reason, Ben Johnson doesn't want to be a head coach. I mean, he's turning down Josh Harris as they're flying to see him. It's a unique situation with him. So yeah, Dan is not Mr. Schematic, right? He's not calling the plays, but he didn't lose his star coordinator. And now their defense, just personnel wise, like I think they got a real chance this year. They got a real chance because there's a ton of pressure in San Francisco. We'll have to see how this Aiyuk thing plays out. Jordan Love's got to do it for 17 games, right? So you look around Philly, we still got question marks with Sirianni. Now the roster's good, but I think the line, it's this year. Now, over the course of the next 3 or 4 years, it gets more difficult if you're not the 4th best quarterback, if you're closer to 11 and you're making huge money. But I do think you've seen, if you can protect the guy, he's mentally tough. He's like a better version. He's a different type player, but a lot like Alex Smith, but I think better. And
throws a better ball.
Mentally tough. Yeah. And that matters in these playoff games. Alex is just so physically limited when Andy would get him to the playoffs. Jared has more physical capability. He can't run like that, but he can throw. And if you can protect him, the NFC, I mean, they should have won that game. And like you said, I thought it was pretty reckless by Dan Campbell with kicking the field goals.
Yeah.
But I think this year they got a legit chance. If you tell me the Lions, is it inconceivable they're the number 1 seed? Their division's hard, but I mean, why couldn't they win? I don't know if San Francisco is going to win 13-14 again. Maybe they win 11 because them and the Rams both 11. What if the Lions get to 12 or 13 and have the 1 seed and then they get to everything's in a dome?
I would argue the 2 best rosters in the NFL are San Francisco and Detroit. The best teams are almost all in the AFC. It's like when USC dominated the Pac-12, the conference was just awful, but USC was the best program. And basically they got every California recruit they wanted. I think the Niners, I said this before last year, if you took the Niners and the Lions and just, we're going to make a Pro Bowl team out of these 2 teams, it could compete with, I mean, literally the offensive line, Trent Williams one side, Panay the other. You literally, they would hurt people.